Good afternoon and welcome to another segment of Real Estate Network. We've had some interesting developments this week as of Thursday. The Supreme Court ruled against the eviction ban for the United States in terms of overturning that evictions are no longer authorized except for in the state you live in. So we're going to be playing a short video for you shortly on how this all operates, but every state has its own rules and regulations. California will continue the ban. It is mandated here through a state law. Last Thursday evening, the United States Supreme Court overturned President Joe Biden's eviction moratorium and said that the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has overstepped its authority by issuing it. The summary judgment means that landlords can begin evictions right away in states or cities that have no moratorium of their own. The current federal moratorium on evictions was to expire on October 3rd. Landlords who filed the suit said many were forced to sell their properties after more than a year of collecting no rent. Here are a few passages from the 8-page ruling, which also swipes at Congress for not acting and instead relying on the CDC. Last week, another entity filed papers talking about AB 3088, AB 832, and SB 91, which is the Tenant Relief Act. The extension gives until September 30th to tenants to file their paperwork for rent relief or pay up their rent for October. So for October 2021, each tenant needs to pay their rent in full for October. October 2nd, if you have not paid it by the 1st or by the 30th, you then could receive a 3-day notice to move or quit. The landlord can issue that to you. You pay the rent within 3 days. You have the standard time frame, as always, to pay that. AB 3088, based on the extension, sanctioned you to have 20 months for no rent. So from last March until September 20th of 2020, which is this month, you did not have to pay rent. However, you were supposed to pay at least 25%. Let's make this very clear to everyone. So now that rent is due and you have to set up a payment arrangement with your landlord to make that up. If you do not pay the entire rent for October of 2021, next month, you could be given the 3-day notice to vacate the premises. You are required to pay October. Other causes of action could be also employed. Let's say you are a nuisance in the building, you've created other problems, there's a lack of safety and sanitation, you moved in an extra person, your car has been parked illegally on the yard or on the premises, you acquired a pet. So the landlord not only could evict you now for the non-payment of rent, but any of these other issues. You had 20 months now to do what we call a deferral of rent, and that's what you will be getting. You were protected from March 1st through August 31st of 2020. The legislature is not calling it rent, it's called a civil debt, which means you have the right to seek, or the landlord has the right to seek their money from you. What is a civil debt? It begins with a 3-day notice. The person owes a certain amount of money. I think we discussed early on in another video that there were 3 forms that were required that the landlord had to give you. The first one was a change in the law back in March of 2020. The second one was a declaration. How were you affected by COVID? Either you had a child that caught COVID, you caught COVID, your hours on your job were reduced, you were fired due to COVID, you were caring for an elderly or a sick person in your home. Um, all of those different avenues, you could have had one or both of those that made you qualify for the rental assistance money. I would highly suggest to you that right now you file for that money and also turn in that declaration every month to the landlord. The next document was the one where you had to put down the 25% that you were paying that month and then put the balance of what you owed. That should have been given to the landlord. I realize that many of the landlords were unaware of their civic responsibility to get that form from you or even give you the form. Therefore, you are going to have to obtain that form. And if you contact me, I'll be more than happy to forward you a copy of it so that you're complying with the law. Because as of this month, September, you are required to pay 25%. Now, all of the months that you are behind with the 25%, you're going to have to make a payment plan with this landlord to catch up on that. Or they can bring a civil lawsuit against you as of November 1st. So you have about a month to pull it together, to make a payment arrangement, or they can file what we call a civil lawsuit. Now, of course, you are aware that there is small claims court, and they could go into small claims court. I think the amount has been extended to $10,000 that they could collect from you, and that would be a judgment. The civil lawsuit is not going to be a judgment. You'll just get some type of form of payment arrangement with them. But the two, they're going to be getting more into how one is different from the other later. The debts are staggering because you now have that debt from March of 2020 to August that you were supposed to pay 25%, from August to February 21st that you were supposed to pay the 25%, and now you have from February 21st to September. So there's almost 3/4 that you are behind that 25% that need to come to an arrangement situation, a negotiation about. Now we're calling this the transition period. It's period from September 1st to September 30th. They are looking at it as the transition period where the tenant is required to pay the 25% to the landlord by September 30th. The other 75% goes into this civil debt that you owe that the landlord can collect in either small claims or by filing a lawsuit against you. If not paid by September 30, you should be contacting an attorney or some type of paralegal to start setting you up, your paperwork so that you can present it to the landlord to stop, let's say, an eviction. You do not want an eviction on your record. It's going to make it very difficult for you to find other housing. Later on another day, I will be going into cash for keys, which means that the landlord and you can negotiate to have you either move or come up with the money, and they can provide you with relocation money. A lot of people are unaware that that could be the next step here to a amicable break in this lease that you have. You've lost your job, you don't have any means of paying for the place. She has the right coming up probably to increase the rent. So all of this needs to be discussed and put on the table so that you understand clearly what's going on. All right, to give you a little briefing, the state will reimburse you at 100%. This is talking for landlords now. Landlords, be clear that you need to go and apply for the rent assistance if the tenant didn't apply. A lot of landlords are unaware of that. They assume that the tenant want the rental assistance, but some of them don't. They don't want to get involved in giving up all their personal information, and so they're not applying. When you get to the website, it asks for the landlord to file or the tenant can file. It is not necessary for the tenant to, for the landlord to agree to file. They don't have to, because many landlords don't want to file for the renter assistance, but it is available to you. The state will reimburse you, though, landlords, 100% of the money that the tenant did not pay. It's a great program. Many states do not even have this. In most cases, the tenant does not qualify. There is a median income based on the number of people in the person's household that qualifies them to get that money. So once they fill out the paperwork, they're called in for a consultation. They bring all their documentation, the rental agreement that you have with them, whether or not they were on unemployment, if they worked part-time, full-time, they got laid off, their kids were out of school, the child was sick. You'll bring all this documentation into the rental assistance office. They will go through your paperwork and make a decision. You'll either get a denial or you will get a decision based on what they find. The landlord can go forward with their case to small claims or file a lawsuit. City of LA, all rent is deferred at this time. The mayor has to declare an emergency is over. The emergency in the state of California, Los Angeles, the city of LA, the mayor has to declare that the emergency is over, and that has not happened. In fact, more than likely, the emergency is going to continue here in the state of California. It was already extended till September 30th. More than likely, it will be continued. Or they will bring an unlawful detainer against you for this transition period. So it's very important. I cannot stress to you how important it is for you to fill out that paperwork and get it into your landlord. So if they do issue you the 3-day notice and you have to go into court, an eviction cannot occur. That paperwork stops an eviction. Here you will see that I have a landlord checklist up. And the landlord, when you get to the website, this is what you will see. It's just kind of a guideline of what you're going to need. And what it says, are you the property owner or the property management or agency that has legal authority to lease the unit? So you're going to check that off if that is you. Some people have property management teams and they would be checking this box off. Do you or one of your eligible tenants with unpaid rent between April 1st and March 31st, 2021 due to COVID? You're going to check that if it applies. In order to qualify for this money, that would have to be checked. Do you have a tenant lease or a written agreement with an eligible tenant? Of course you do. You need to present that. Do you agree to waive 20% of the unpaid rent for the above time period? This is a sticky question. A lot of these owners do not want to waive the 25%. If you don't waive the 25%, you will not get the other 75%. Let's just be clear. That's part of the program. In order to get the 75%, nothing else taken out of it, you have to agree to let the tenant off of the 25%. And I think it's fair. People are already under stress. They already don't have enough money. They probably have kids and other bills that they're trying to get paid. And the government is going to give you 75% of your money. Good deal. If you checked all of the above, you are eligible to apply. It says it very clearly there. If you are a landlord or a property owner, and all of those are true for you, you qualify. Before applying, you will need the following items. They want to see your IRS W-9 form. To verify the residence, you need one of the following: a lease agreement, state-issued program ID with a license, official letter from a third party showing the name and address of your building, government-issued library card, utility statement. Can you move it up? To verify ownership, property owners, you're going to need your property deeds, your mortgage note, your property tax form, or your homeowner insurance would be enough to show that you are the legal owner of the property. Now, this is going to be presented when you go in for your consultation with the renter assistance program. A current lease, to verify the rent is owed to you, you need the current lease signed by the applicant and the landlord that identifies the unit where the applicant resides and establishes the rental payment amount. In the absence of a signed lease, so some people don't have leases, it was a gentleman's agreement or whatever you want to call it, evidence of the amount of the rental payment may include bank statements, what they were paying you before the pandemic, obviously, check stubs from a tenant, or other documentation like a money order or some type of bank transfer that every month they were putting $1,000 into your account, showing that this was a pattern established that you were okay with. Written attestation, meaning that you have to go and have it signed by a notary public that they were renting from you and that this was the amount and that sort of thing, and the date, the address, and everything is there included. So that's just generally what you will be presenting to the renter assistance people. All right, let's see. I have a video that I found interesting that talks a little bit about landlord situation and how people are being treated, as well as what is being required right now by different people. But this first one is going to be on the Supreme Court. That's just recently this week, breaking news, where they have struck down the moratorium and eviction that Biden has deemed necessary to keep the economy going.
Eviction uncertainty here in the Valley. Well, hello and thanks for joining us, everyone. I'm Todd Quinones.
And I'm Trisha Keene. In Washington, a divided Supreme Court struck down the CDC's nationwide moratorium on evictions. But how does this affect people here in our Valley? And are there other protections in place for Nevadans?
Well, Alyssa Bethencourt is the newest member here of the 13 Action News team. She joins us now live. And Alyssa, you spoke to a group helping renters and also a person right now on the verge of being evicted. So what did you learn?
Right, guys, and there's been a lot of confusion for those people facing eviction. That woman that I spoke with was under the impression that she would have a few more weeks to get things sorted out, but an eviction expert in the Valley that I spoke with tells me that evictions here have been rolling out since the start of June.
And I really don't have nowhere to go.
Vivian Butler has lived in this North Las Vegas home for almost a year, but time may be running out for her.
The constable could be coming to put me out come Monday or Tuesday.
Butler, like many others, had no idea that the federal eviction moratorium did not apply in the state of Nevada. The federal moratorium was set to expire this October. The one here in Nevada expired on May 31st.
We have AB 486, which arguably protects tenants more than the federal moratorium does.
Kayla Levitt leads the team at Levitt Eviction. She explains that the federal moratorium only applied to states that didn't already have an eviction law in place.
When the tenant gets the notice, they don't respond, they don't communicate with their landlord, they just say, I can't be evicted, and they just write it off, and that's just really not the case.
Levitt says that AB 486 protects tenants from getting evicted, and it also helps them apply for rental assistance. If they apply for help, landlords aren't able to evict them for a window of up to 3 months. But if tenants don't respond, landlords can move forward with the eviction process.
I think many landlords were under the impression of, oh, the federal moratorium got extended again, I can't evict. And that was just not the case.
The confusion has left people like Butler with no other option but to walk away and close the door to this chapter forever.
I'm just gonna have to put my stuff in storage. I have nowhere to go, but I don't know.
Now, AB 486 is set to be in effect until June 5th, 2023, or until the $360 million in federally funded rental assistance runs out. I'm live in Spring Valley. Alyssa Bethencourt.
All states have well, let's clear this up. There are two moratoriums. I think this is really important to make clear. There is a federal moratorium and there is a state moratorium. And the two are expressly different. One, the federal government has deemed a moratorium on evictions. That's the one that was struck down this week. Then you have your state moratorium, which is still in place in the state of California. This is Nevada, theirs is still in place. So nothing can happen until they have been lifted, let's say, from the state. So even if the federal is lifted, if your state still has one in place, then you're covered. And in some states you are, such as California, Nevada, and a few other places. The bill would extend a ban on evictions to September 30th, stretching renter protections that began with NEWSOME's executive order in March 2020. It would be the third extension of rent protections. The emergency bill needs approval of the legislature very quickly. A federal eviction ban was extended 1 month till August 1st on Thursday by the Centers for Disease Control. And this is the one that they're talking about that they felt the CDC had no right to intervene in. So we've got a couple of people giving orders here that is really causing a problem, and the landlords feel that they're being abused. A lot of people are very upset with Governor Newsom. They feel that this is an onslaught on them personally, which I don't believe that that's the case. They're just trying to give people who have been impacted by this devastating disease a chance to play catch up. In terms of rent payments, only consistent rent payments will be considered to improve eligibility. Currently, Fannie Mae's rules help renters to buy homes. What they're looking at doing now, if you have been paying your rent on time, they're going to give you the ability to use your credit report and your good payment history with your landlord as part of like your FICO score. They're going to count it. So all of you that have been paying your bills on time, didn't need renter's assistance, you can have your credit history run or your rental history ran, and they will count it towards you getting a loan to buy a home yourself. I'm going to be having a couple of more seminars coming up very soon. They're going to be opening the door to renters buying again, and they're going to have a couple of new programs. Also, I'd like to mention, let's go back to, well, I'll go ahead and mention it now. A couple of new programs are coming down. One is going to be the federal government is going to step in and try to help people buy homes as well. That's why this is important, the renter history that's going to be brought forward. But in addition to that, Will Smith and Jay-Z have started their own lending company and will be helping low-income people buy property, as well as Jay-Z and Will have placed their financial support behind statutes. Jay-Z and Will have placed their financial support behind a startup company that intends to make home ownership a possibility for low-income families, according to Bloomberg. It's called Landis Technologies, and it's going to be helping with $165 million in donations to help people with 1,000 homes, which will be rented out to low-income families working toward mortgage eligibility. So you will be renting, it's going to be like a rent-to-own program until they qualify to pick up the payments on their own and move forward. Additionally, as renting clients work on their credit, save money, and minimize debt, staff at Landis Technologies will provide renters with coaches that help them with money management, improving credit scores, and essential information to help them to eventually qualify to buy their own home. The federal government is also getting into this program and will be doing subsequent programs on this, whereby they will partner with you to purchase a home where they will have a 45% interest in the home until you're ready to take it, over yourself. So that's another new program that's coming out that we're gonna get into.